Well, we have breaking news tonight in the federal criminal investigation of Donald Trump's possession of government documents, including classified documents at his Florida residence. The Wall Street Journal is reporting tonight that Kash Patel, a close associate of Donald Trump's, has reached an immunity agreement with the Department of Justice and will soon be forced to testify under oath to a federal grand jury investigating the case. Prosecutors obtained the immunity agreement with Patel after he appeared before the grand jury in October and refused to answer questions by invoking the Fifth Amendment on the grounds that his answers could incriminate him. Kash Patel was the last person Donald Trump put in charge of his dealings with the National Archives about the documents that the archives was trying to retrieve from Trump's Florida home. Before the FBI obtained a search warrant to search the residence in August, Kash Patel said publicly Trump declassified whole sets of materials in anticipation of leaving government that he thought the American public should have the right to read themselves. Never mind that he hasn't allowed the American public to read those documents. Patel went on to say, I was there with President Trump when he said, we are declassifying this information. We will see if he is now willing to say that under oath. Kash Patel served in the Trump administration until the day President Biden was inaugurated. In a speech tonight in Washington about next week's election, President Biden began by describing what happened to Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband when he was attacked with a hammer that produced a skull fracture. That happened to him in his home in a case prosecutors call attempted murder. After referring to that, President Biden said this.
We don't settle our differences in America with a riot, a mob, or a bullet, or a hammer. We settle them peaceably at the ballot box.
Our first guest tonight, Glenn Kirshner, was in the courtroom today in Washington when we learned that some Trump supporters wanted to settle the last election with rifles. In the federal criminal trial of the so-called Oath Keepers for seditious conspiracy, a secretly recorded audio revealed the leader of the group, Elmer Stewart Rhodes, saying this after the January 6th attack on democracy.
We should have brought rifles. We could have fixed it right then and there. Like hanging closer from the lamppost.
We should have brought rifles. We could have fixed it right then and there. I'd hang effing Pelosi from the lamppost. A message that Elmer Rhodes wrote to Donald Trump in the last days of his presidency was also introduced in court today. The message urged Donald Trump to use the military to hold on to power and refuse to leave the White House. The message said, if you don't, then Biden, Kamala will turn all that power on you, your family, and all of us. You and your family will be imprisoned and killed. You and your children will die in prison. Elmer Rhodes wrote the message to Donald Trump after being told by Jason Alpers that he could get that message to Donald Trump. After seeing the message to Trump and becoming disturbed by it, Jason Alpers contacted the FBI and provided them with the written message and the audio recording of Elmer Rhodes saying we should have brought rifles. The Rhodes message to Trump also said, I am here for you, and so are all my men. We will come help you if you need us, military and police, and so will your millions of supporters. That was, of course, a very insulting lie about Donald Trump's millions of supporters, a couple of thousand of whom actually showed up to fight for Donald Trump on January 6th. That's a couple of thousand out of 74 million law-abiding Trump voters who never have joined and never would join a violent political crusade. A court filing has revealed some of the emails that a California judge ordered turned over to the January 6th committee by one of Donald Trump's election lawyers, John Eastman. In an email dated December 31st, 2020, one of the lawyers on the Trump team, Kenneth Chesebro, wrote this to John Eastman. Merely having this case pending in the Supreme Court, not ruled on, might be enough to delay consideration of Georgia, particularly if Pence has the legal ability and will to insert himself, at least enough to win delay. Possibly Thomas would end up being the key here, circuit justice, right? We want to frame things so that Thomas could be the one to issue some sort of stay or other circuit justice opinion saying Georgia is in legitimate doubt. Realistically, our only chance to get a favorable judicial opinion by January 6th, which might hold up the Georgia count in Congress, is from Thomas. Do you agree, Professor Eastman? And John Eastman replied, I think I agree with this. So there's John Eastman, who served as a Supreme Court clerk for Clarence Thomas and who has remained close to him and who has remained in lifelong close touch with Clarence Thomas's wife, Virginia Thomas. There he is saying that, knowing Clarence Thomas as he does, he agrees that Clarence Thomas was their only hope of getting a delay from the Supreme Court involving the Georgia presidential election result. The friends of Clarence Thomas know that Clarence Thomas would not recuse himself from that case, even though the law requires him to recuse himself from a case in which his spouse has an active interest. The members of the conspiracy who were friends with Clarence Thomas, the conspiracy to overthrow the presidential election, had their eye on the most publicly compromised member of the Supreme Court in the court's history as their last best hope, because they could not use rifles.